Hey guys, this is Ted Lincoln's Fishing Life, here to do the recap for the bite of the day for December of 2020, the last bite of the day of this first year that I've been putting these out. If you've been following this, I've been putting them out twice a week. It was 3 times a week originally. I think I'm into the 90 will be the next one, so almost 100 bite of the day videos in a year, or a little less than a year. So each month I do a recap here about the bites so I can explain what happened, and starting here in 2021 I thought I'd get a little bit more in depth with my recaps, actually show you the tackle that I use and the baits instead of just telling you the story behind it. I'll still tell you the story behind it, but yeah, so just a little new spin on my bite of the day recaps. And like I said, this is the recap for December of 2020. Bites number, was it 78 through 85. So yeah, we'll start with number 78. This is on Orange Lake with a subscriber of mine, Justice. If you follow me on social media, you've probably seen his name pop up, or he's a member of a lot of the same Facebook fishing groups I'm a part of. And we've been trying to go fishing, and he's mostly a bank angler and had wanted to hit Orange Lake, and it had been a while since I'd been to Orange Lake, so I decided, you know, let's go try it. And with any lake, if you haven't been there in a while, you kind of gotta start with what you know, maybe. I mean, if it is a lake you know, like I do. So I went to the same area of the lake that I had luck a couple months earlier. Entirely different conditions, but I figured we'll start there because I knew fish were there, and we'll expand. So I'm going to show you the bite now, and then we're going to come back and I'll talk to you about the tackle that I used. Here it is, bite number 78, fishing with Justice on Orange Lake. I caught a 5-pounder on an underspin with an MC swim bait shad on it. Something big. Underspin. Just tried a moving bait. Is that a bass? I couldn't tell. I think it is.
No way.
Yep.
Yeah, it is, dude.
Good bass.
Dude. Good
My
bass.
scale is busted,
No way.
but I don't need to wait on that one, but that's a fat bass.
That's underspin.
So yeah, that was bite number 78, Orange Lake underspin, and here it is, this little underspin. It is actually this is a Strike King weedless underspin hook that I got from Atypical Outdoors when we went on our our shoal bass adventure in Georgia. Somebody had told them they were biting it. We ended up catching them on jigs that day, but I had a couple of these hooks laying around, and you know, the underspin isn't something that I had used a lot. I remember using it a long time ago when I was a kid, like the Roadrunners and whatnot for, you know, panfish, and they always seem to work. And one day I was just fishing in a different lake and saw these schooling bass, and they weren't hitting anything I had. And I was like, you know, I have that underspin hook, and I just got some smaller swim baits, not this one. But the first fish I ever caught at underspin was a 5-pounder that was hiding under the schoolies. So needless to say, I became a fan. But for me, it was key to find these guys, the swim bait. This is the MC swim bait. It is the 3.5-inch MC shad in baby bass. If you've watched any of my unboxing videos, you know I'm a huge fan of baby bass, and particularly their baby bass. It's kind of a clear, translucent body with black glitter as the lateral line, and then a green top. And their tail is a little more square than like a Kitech or most other paddle tails. It's more like a half paddle tail. So it's got a really tight action. So it goes really well with the blade. Doesn't interfere at all. And so yeah, this is what I was using. As you can see in the bite, I was casting between clumps of hydrilla and just pulling it along, same way I would do with a chatterbait or a spinnerbait, which is exactly why I was using my chatterbait rod, which is right here. It's one of my more recent purchases. It's one of my SLX reels. I have a bunch of these, so I kind of move them around as needed. And so this is my 7-to-1 version, which is pretty much the slowest reel I use most of the time. It's either 2-to-1 or 7-to-1. This one has a jackhammer stealth on it. Got my birthday 8-pounder on. But I run, this is a medium heavy 7-2 Shimano Cellus rod, which these Cellus rods are a composite. So it's a lot more parabolic than, say, the same rod in the SLX, even though it has the same feel, same kind of shape in the handle, and like the grip is the same. It's not quite as light, but because of its composite glass and carbon, it's more parabolic, and it works really well for chatterbaits and for things like these mid-size or kind of smaller weedless underspins. And so I was running, what I'm running here, 30-pound braid to a 17-pound mono leader. And that's pretty much what I use a lot. I just bought some Berkeley, what is it, a copolymer? I forget what it is. And I'm going to experiment that with this leader. But I pretty much gave up on fluorocarbon for bait casting leaders, for anything other than my light spinning gear. I still use fluorocarbon leaders on that. And I don't have any rods at the moment that have any fluoro as a main line. I'm just not a fan. I'd just rather tie a mono leader. But that's a whole nother story I'll get into some other time. But so yeah, this is Shimano's budget rod. It's only 60 bucks. I have 2 of them now because I liked it so much. And like I said, I just caught an 8-pounder on this the other day. And in the video you can see it deals with that 5-pounder really well. It's really parabolic, and for a bait like this, it's still a 7-2, so I still got the leverage to pop it out of that grass when you're fishing around the hydrilla. But when you set the hook, it doesn't ever give them any slack. And with these kind of baits, like the chatterbait, there's some spinner baits maybe. I'd probably use this also for like medium-sized square bills. I haven't really used it for that, but I imagine it'll work for it. So that's what I was using that day out on Orange Lake with Justice, bite number 78. So that means next up is bite number 79. And this, if you've been watching my channel, you've seen the full video. I did a full breakdown. This is me catching my new PB, which I had a friend nickname for me Big Mama. And Big Mama is 12.8 pounds that I caught on a Sticko Florida rigged. And like I said, there's a full breakdown, cast to catch to weigh to release on my channel. I'll link it down below. You should check it out. But here it is. Watch this edited version, the 1-minute bite of the day version of me catching my new PB, Big Mama, 12.9 ounces. That's big, whatever it is. It does the bass. That's a bass. I think that is a bass. Oh my God. Oh, dude. Oh! 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 So yeah, that's her, my new PB. My last PB was 10-12, so I jumped ahead quite a bit. And this is out of a public lake, a really big lake. And as you can see in that video, I'm up this creek, pretty far, but it's actually about 7 feet deep back there where she was. And it was the only bass I caught that day. No, I caught one other. No, I didn't. I only caught a pickerel and a mudfish. But yeah, I mean, it's a fish of a lifetime out of a public lake that here in Gainesville, as far as we know, is the biggest bass to be caught out of there since the 80s. Gary at Gary's Tackle Box, the local tackle shop here in town that I also work for I fix reels for him, said that he hadn't heard of a bass that big coming out of there since the 80s, and that was on shiners. But so I caught that fish on a Florida rig Singo, and like I said, it's in my video. I also have a whole video on rigging a Florida rig. If you haven't seen any of that and you want to see what a Florida rig, this is what it is. But I was using this bait, which this is a big Sinco. So this is a 6-inch Sticko, actually, Bass Pro Shop Sticko. This is the 7 1/8, I think. It's just over 7 inches. I forget the exact length. And out of anything Bass Pro Shop makes, this is the one thing that I have to buy from them. Their stick baits. They just fall great. They're the right weight. They don't fall apart as fast as the original Sinco, which is the next best one in terms of action. But I even like their action more than the original Sinco. But yeah, so what's the Florida rig? You're still waiting to hear, right? So it's basically a screw-in bullet Texas rig style bait. But I use a special bullet. This is from Gambler. This is what they call a hollow point. It's a clear plastic, pretty much weightless bullet that screws into the top of the bait. The other key to how I rig a Sinco Florida rig is this hook. It's a Mustad, actually tube hook for flipping tubes, and it's this lack of a severe bend on the offset, and then the hook point offset from the eye that make this a perfect Sinco hook as long as you use that screw-in weight so the Sinco doesn't slide down. But so yeah, there's a whole video on this on my site or on my page. I'll link that down below as well, and the video of the catch. As for tackle, usually I'd be throwing this on my heavier rig, but this day I tied this lure on just before I caught her, and I just felt like I needed to have a Sinco on, and the rod that I wanted to use wasn't there, so I grabbed my SLX combo here. And this is an 8-2-1 SLX right-handed reel, and this is the 7-2, can't even read the writing anymore, I've worn this rod out, 7-2 medium heavy fast action. And like I said, it's almost the same rod as this Salis in terms of weight and action, but they're entirely different rods in terms of how they actually work. But this is also 30-pound braid, and I was also running a 17-pound leader that day because I believe I had a swim jig on this before I put the Sinco on. And like I said, it was just the rod next to me, picked it up. So let me town a Sinco onto something, so I put it on here. Which is funny because the last time I did that and ran this instead of my normal big Sinco rod, I caught an 8-pounder, 8-11 on also Florida rig Sinco, that same black and pumpkin, or June bug and pumpkin seed colored one, this one. Unfortunately, I missed that bite because I had my GoPro turned around on my hat, so all I got was the view of my hat that day. This is my oldest SLX reel. I got this maybe right when they came out, so maybe 2 years ago. And it was my frog reel for about a year. And then I blew out the anti-reverse, so I bought a new reel while I waited for the anti-reverse to show up because I was on a frog bite. I didn't want to miss it. But it needs a little work, but it's a little dry as far as grease, but man, I have abused this reel and it's still holding up. And it pairs perfectly, obviously, with the SLX rod. Caught me a 12-pounder on 30-pound test, medium heavy, in heavy cover. I mean, yeah, it's got nothing more to prove to me, that's for sure. So yeah, That was bite number 79, my new PB, 12.9, Big Mama. Bass of a lifetime. Well, maybe not, we'll see. Been on average breaking my PB once a year. And I've definitely lost fish as big, if not bigger than her in the last 2 years. So we'll see. Next up is bite number 80, and this was the week after I caught the PB. So this is December bass on a popper. I met another subscriber out there on this lake. It's Lake Santa Fe here in Gainesville. It's a very public lake, a lot of houses around it. I've been trying to figure it out because it's got some deep water and stuff. It's a little different than a lot of the other shallower lakes here around Gainesville. But yeah, I was struggling that day as well. Got there in the afternoon and met this guy. We kind of looked around. It was a cold front day. He went home and I stuck around until sunset, and literally the last 20 minutes of light, the whole lake came to life, and I just happened to be in the right spot at the right time to catch this 5-pounder in December on a popper. Check it out, bite number 80. There we go. Yes. Whew. December topwater, it's hard to beat a 5-pounder. I mean, it's amazing to live here in Florida and we can randomly get something like that. And if you've watched my channel, and especially these bite videos, you know I'm a fan of this, the Yozuri 3D popper. In this color, I don't even know what this color is. I got this out of the sales bin at Walmart. They're constantly in there, and I buy as many as I can every time I go. They come with good hooks, but I wear these hooks out, so I've replaced this. This is a lure in that video, this very one. I replaced the hooks with some G-Finesse Gamakatsu hooks and made a little homemade dressed feather for the back, a little heat shrink tubing, and part of a paintbrush. I'm an artist, so I got a lot of paintbrushes hanging around. And this has been my go-to topwater for about a year now. I didn't used to be the biggest popper fan, but there's something about this particular one that I can cast it further than most poppers its size. It's super accurate with the way I have it set up on my rod, and it's subtle enough that I can just actually chug it, pop it like you would a popper, but it also walks really good. And also being this kind of ghost color, I feel like it just kind of mimics a lot of the bait fish around these parts that I fish. And so I run this 3D popper on my dedicated topwater rod. I like topwater so much that I have an entire 3700 tray that I carry with me that's just topwaters, and I have a rod that I throw probably 90% of those topwaters. Like some of the bigger ones I'll throw on some of these other rods just because, you know, like a big whopper plopper or the big Sammy or any of the really bigger walking baits, I might move up to a bigger rod. But it's this right here. It's probably the oldest rod in my arsenal. I don't even know how old this particular rod is because this was donated to me. And it's a 6'6" Bass Pro Shop Bionic Blade. And one of the reasons I like these older rods, first of all, I like the shorter rod for its accuracy. I got another popper on there just because I had to replace the hooks on that one. So normally that one would be on here. But yeah, I use these older rods in the shorter length for two reasons. the accuracy of the 6.6 is just amazing. So I guess there's 3 reasons. That's one, accuracy. I grew up throwing a 6.6, so this is like my most comfortable length. And it's got just a long enough handle that I can get power but still twitch it. And these older rods have bigger guides. And I only run 30-pound braid to 17-pound mono leader. That's the only way I fish any of my top waters. And these bigger guides let that leader knot pass through. And so the other reason is that as rods powers and everything have evolved, even though it says a 6.6 medium heavy fast, it's more like a moderate fast as far as a new rod would be. It's got a good tip, but a really stiff backbone, and I throw all my topwaters in or around and through cover that you shouldn't be throwing them in. So that's why I like a little bit more backbone than a normal treble hook rod, because I got to pull it out of grass, pull it out of weeds, off of trees. I'll throw a popper into a hole in a weed bank just to chug it a couple times. But yeah, so the combination of all that, I just fell in love with this rod, and so it's on my boat every single time I go out. I don't ever not go out with my topwater rod. And it's paired with another SLX. This is another 8 2-to-1, because when you're working in topwater, all you're doing with the reel is pulling up line. And if you fish topwater, you know they miss a lot. So sometimes you gotta reel it up real quick to try to get it out there again. So I run the 8 2-to-1s on my topwater and on my frog rod for that reason, because you're just using the rod to work it and the reel just to bring in the line. And you're making so many casts that it really helps to have the faster reel. So yeah, that was bite number 80. Next up is bite number 81, and this is actually not a new video. This video is from maybe 2 years ago, but it's the same period of time, early December. And this is when I went down to Miami for Art Basel. I was working on a video called Art Basel, just never finished it. If you try to edit videos, you know how it is. You start these projects. And that's actually why I started this bite of the day, is to you start using some of these clips. And I had forgotten that I had these peacock bass bites. So here's my first, actually this is my second Florida peacock bass. So third peacock bass ever. I caught one years and years ago in Hawaii, on the island of Kauai, on my birthday, out of a little pond that I went on a guided trip for peacocks. They have peacocks and largemouth there. It's awesome. I think they also have smallmouth in one of the rivers. It's crazy. It's crazy what people will import all the way to an island and let loose. But so yeah, this is in Miami, bite number 81. My first peacock bass caught on film, and I'm throwing one of my favorite JDM baits, which is this fish arrow, really big fluke with the foil inside. Sounds like crushing bones, according to them. More on this after the bite. Got one. Got another one. Woo. Second peacock bass in Florida, guys. Oh yeah. So yeah, that was my second peacock bass in Florida. First one I had caught on a smaller jig. It was a smaller fish too. But as you saw in that video, I was running this fluke kind of as a topwater with this 6/0 Gamakatsu Superline EWG hook. This is a big hook, big beefy hook. And I Texas rig it like you would any other fluke. Just like this, I'll just show you. And these baits are awesome. It was this color too. And I mean, you don't get a lot more minnow-like than that. And this is in like kind of a bluish silver. I know, this is awesome. I was fishing that fish arrow on a travel rod since I was riding around on a bicycle to all these spots in Miami that Captain Mikey had hooked me up with. He gave me general areas to look at to try to catch these fish. And so it's a multi-piece rod. I was running my Casitas with 30-pound test to the 17-pound mono leader, like I always do. It's a pretty good, it was one of my cheaper rods. I have it in my video, I believe, from my California rod, my California trip about my tackle. There's a rod and reel breakdown and a tackle breakdown. So you can go back in my channel and check that out. I'll also link that below. But so yeah, travel rod, back canals of Miami, throwing a Japanese JDM 5-inch fluke with a big ass hook in it. I caught a few on that trip. Good times. Peacock bass pulls so hard. I hope they can do Art Basel again, because I usually have to go down there to show and do work. But you know, with the new world we're living in, big gatherings like that, it might be a while. But I miss catching peacock bass. I need to go back sometime soon. All right, so next up is bite number 82. And this again is from earlier in the year, just another clip that I hadn't shared with anyone. And it's me catching a 5-pounder on a Lucky Craft jerkbait, the Stacy 90 version 2. There it is. Check this out. I'm out there casting this around on my roundabout, and I probably caught 20 something fish that day. Ended up with a good case of bass thumb, and this was the biggest of the day, right around 5 pounds. Check it out. Bite number 82. Bite number 82 is on this Lucky Craft Stacy 90. I'm not going to go into this yet because I'm going to do this. This appears later in the bite recap in my top 5 of 2020. So I'll talk more about this and the gear in that video. But Stacy 90, it's a deep diving Lucky Craft crankbait. We'll come back to it in just a couple minutes. So here we are at bite number 83, and this was earlier in December. And I was out on the Ocklawaha/Rodman Reservoir, and it was I got there early and I fished all day. I got a couple bites. Things were super slow, and I was just stopping at spots on the way back to the boat ramp. And I hit the spot, and there was just schoolies there. And man, when you've had a slow day of winter fishing, catching a bunch of schoolies in a row can sure like make up for it. Make the day seem better. I mean, still catching something, and you know, schoolies are fun. These guys weren't stupid though. I had to keep mixing it up. Like I'd catch one on one bait, and then that would be it. I wouldn't bite again. And then I'd catch him on another bait, and that would be it. I wouldn't catch him again. So here it is. Check out, what is it? Bite number 83, 3 bass in a row on 3 different lures, and I'll give you the breakdown of lures after this bite.
Maybe a little better on and cook it. A little bit. About the same size. There we go. That was a nice little bite. Relatives. That's a fat bass.
Schoolies, 3 in a row, 3 different baits. Here are the 3 different baits. First one I'll show you, the Head and Baby Torpedo. I have so much confidence in the smaller torpedoes, even the teeny and the teeny, the super. There's the tiny, the teeny. There's the teeny, the tiny, the baby, and then the torpedo. These baits are amazing. As you saw, I just threw it up there, twitched a little bit on the same, my same topwater rod. It's 30-pound braid to 17-pound mono leader. And I got a couple hits on it after the one catch, but pretty much after that, they stopped paying attention to the topwater. And at some point, I tied on one of my favorite square bills, which is kind of a secret. No, it's not that. Not very many people talk about this bait, but man, it does the job. The Rapala Brat. If you're not hitting bottom, which down here, or hitting structure, which around here you can't always do with a treble hook bait because the bass are in so much cover all the time that it's hard to fish down around the cover with a square bill and be effective. These hunt a lot on their own, so you almost don't need to hit stuff for them to deflect. And took one cast with it before I got one. And I throw this on actually the only rod I don't have sitting on the deck. It's another Celis rod. This is a medium 7-foot. And I have this with a Bass Rise reel, which is one of Shimano's cheaper JDM reels. It's a bushing reel instead of bearing on the inside here on the drive. It's magnetic cast control instead of, centrifugal. It works really well. This reel for 50 bucks on a $50 reel, a rod, this is like the cheapest combo I have, but it's pretty amazing. Like I was saying before, these Celises are composite, so they're way more parabolic for their speed and weight rating that they have on it. And I was running 20-pound braid to 17-pound mono, and I run a little speed clip on these little VMC clip. This is on one of my custom painted silent Lucky Craft lipless baits, but you can see the little clip on there. I pretty much run these on all my crankbaits, and on my jerkbaits a lot if I'm switching jerkbaits, which I end up doing a lot because they'll hit one and then they'll stop hitting. So yeah, I was running the Brat on that rod with that setup to catch one of those 3 fish in a row. And then the last one was a jerkbait. It's this one right here on my jerkbait rod, which is a Lucky Craft, what is this, the pointer? So yeah, this is the Lucky Craft Pointer 112 in Ghost Minnow. And this is what I used to catch the last one in that group of schoolies. And this is pretty much this is my jerkbait rod. I'll throw some smaller crankbaits on it. Sometimes I'll throw that Brat and stuff on there because it's pretty small too. But this is the 13 Fishing, the Green, Fate Green? It's their saltwater inshore bait casting rod, but it's also a composite rod, and this is like a perfect jerkbait rod. This is 6'8", medium fast, or 6'7", medium fast. It's got a short handle. I think it's just a 13-inch handle, so it makes twitching it real easy. It's cork, which I love cork handles. Have this paired with my Casitas reel that I was talking about earlier. This is like still my best bait finesse reel. I can cast super light jerk baits on this, no problem. And at one point I ran this with fluoro, which I have since abandoned. I don't use fluoro as a main line on anything ever. Don't even have any fluoro on my boat, unless I'm fishing spinning stuff light, which is totally different. But yeah, so this is running 20-pound braid to a 15-pound copolymer leader. This is the first one I'm trying that copolymer on. But I still fish around so much cover that I can't really go below 15 pounds on 90% of the places I fish. I do have a spool of 10-pound copolymer in case I really need to go deeper or lighter. And I also have a spool of 14-pound mono, kind of in between. But all my line is main braid to a leader with a blood knot. I'm running a same VMC clip on this because I switch jerkbaits a lot, like I said. So yeah, that's the tackle for those 3 fish in a row, the 3 schoolies. Made a bad day at least fun, you know. Catching fish is always better than not catching fish, even if they're small. But so next up is bite number, 84. And this is last winter, same time frame, same kind of conditions as we were having this winter. And I took my buddy Tyler out fishing to Orange Lake again. The lake was a little higher last year, and I had found a offshore spot with like kind of by some offshore hydrilla, had a little hump with some brush on it, and it was like, for a solid year, it was like a go-to Ned rig spot. But the winter time had been tough. They had slowed down. I hadn't caught one there in a while. And we're having a tough day, hadn't caught a good fish, so I took Tyler over here. And so this is bite number 84 with a Ned rig. Check it out.
There you go. That looks like a better one. Look at that go. That's a better fish.
I like these Ned rigs.
Let me see what you got there, buddy. That's a bass. That's a real bass. There he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that guy. That is... Want me to get him?
Yeah.
There you go, buddy. That's an orange rig bass right there. Awesome. Now a little bit more.
Ned rig's hard to beat sometimes. I've been using it this winter, not quite as much luck. That spot that I used to go to on Orange Lake is now behind a wall of hydrilla, no longer Ned riggable if there are fish under there, which I don't even think there's enough room for fish. But it wasn't this exact color in the video, but it's similar. This is the Magnum TRD, the 4-inch one, on, I'm not even sure what size, Z-Man Ned rig head, the original head with the original hook, and this is what we were using that day. It's funny because Tyler's like, what does that do? And I was like, it's a Ned rig. It doesn't do anything. It just catches fish. Just like any stick bait. It's amazing. He was throwing this on my spinning setup, which this is not the exact setup. This is pretty close though, because he was using my 7-foot carrot stick, medium, with this reel, which is 15-pound braid to a 10-pound fluoro leader. And this is, like I said, with spinning is the only time I use fluoro. This is a 6.6 carrot stick because that 7-footer got caught between a tree and my boat and broke. So I don't have that particular rod anymore, but it's just like this, just 6 inches longer. And say what you want about carrot sticks, man. These spinning rods, or the rods in general, are so light and sensitive. But man, they work really well in the spinning setup. And yeah, I was throwing, we're throwing around a lot of cover, even with an open hook. That's why I'm running a 10-pound leader. I'll go down to a 6 if it's in more open water, but that's so rare for me to be around open water, totally open water, that it's usually only when I go to places like Rainbow River and I'm sight fishing using finesse stuff, or even the Ned rig. But yeah, carrot stick rod, Shimano, what is it, the Sedona. This is a 3000, like I said, 15-pound braid to 10-pound fluoro leader. And we were just dragging that Ned rig and then just lifting it so it just popped a little. And when it get right by that brush pile, between the brush and the hydro, boom. You can actually also see a video of mine, one of my first videos with Captain Mikey that I put up on my site. He also has his version on his page, which is probably definitely a better video than mine, but I slayed him that day, and then he comes around the first time he goes, second cast he ever makes a Ned rig, and freaking catches an almost 6-pounder right behind me. Gotta watch that man when he's in the back of your boat. He'll catch that big one right from out from under you. But I mean, it's awesome. Love fishing with him. But so yeah, Ned rig, Orange Lake, December. I don't think anybody else is throwing Ned rigs in Orange Lake even to this day. So I don't know. It's underutilized in Florida waters, I believe. I believe Mikey Balls would agree with me. Check out his videos on mag Ned rigs in Florida. It'll change your mind. But so yeah, now we're up to the last bite for 2020. I decided to do a recap of my top 5 bites of the day that I put out, which is pretty much almost my top 5 bass of the year, excluding 2 were either for some reason I didn't get the footage, or basically that was it. Like either my cameras weren't working or I messed up and didn't record it. I didn't get a 10-pounder I caught on a frog, and that 811 I caught on the Cinco where I got the back of my hat instead. But so yeah, the top 5 bass of 2020, watch the video and then I'll break down each bait. Oh shit. There you go. Those were some big fish. I caught a lot of big fish this year. I'll look up the statistics at the end of this video, but I'll go in ascending order, starting with number 5, the way it is in the video. That was an 8-pounder, and that was on a frog, which, I mean, it's hard to beat catching giant fish on frogs. And that was my first big fish on what became one of my top frogs of all time this year, and now is permanently in my box, the 13 Fishing Trash Panda. And this black color, I also have the bluegill color, but this black color is my go-to. I think it's called the Convict color. So I picked up this at Gary's Tackle Box because I'm always looking for a good pointy frog to come through lily pads. Because if you ever fish through lily pads, you know that if you have any kind of blunt end, it's going to get caught in that little V of the lily pads, and it ruins your cast. You scares your fish away. It's really frustrating. This has become my new pad fishing frog. My old favorite one, which I still use in some situations, is the Strike King, and it's also pointy. the Hack Attack Pad Perch. The reason I like the Trash Panda more is of the way the hooks sit. They are literally flush. They're not sticking out at all. You know, people talk about bending the hookups to get better bite ratio. Sure, but not in the cover I'm fishing, because there's cover underneath, there's cover on top, it's all around. I need something that comes through there, totally weedless. And this is the best one I found so far. My favorite frog of all time is still the Pad Crasher in Old Smoky. I just feel like it's a more subtle presentation. Fish don't know what it is and they just destroy it. But in heavy cover, this one works better. And when I first got it, I was hesitant to throw it because I went to go squeeze it. And I was like, oh, it's kind of weird. I thought didn't deflate fast enough. It just turned out that the inflation hole is right where you put your finger if you would squeeze it. So as long as you squeeze it anywhere else, it's really soft. So don't let it fool you. Just because they put the hole in a weird spot, I don't think a fish can block it, but it makes it kind of weird to test it. It walks really well. It's got a separate chamber, or the hooks are heat shrunk together, keeps everything together. I've only worn one of these out, and I caught something like 100 bass on it before it wore out. Great frog. And so this is what I caught the first of the top 5, number 5, the 8-pounder. And that was on my frog rig, which is my other SLX combo. Same SLX 8-2-1 reel that I have on my medium heavy SLX combo, but this is the 7-2 heavy. 50-pound braid, straight braid. The reason I use 50 is that I make really long casts with this rod and reel to get way back in there. And even with the 50-pound, I'll almost spool this on some good downwind casts. If I put 65 on, I would be limiting the range I could get. Sometimes it backfires and I lose big fish because they're too far to get to. Definitely happened to me more than once. But at the same time, it also allows me to make casts across open water from far away into spots. I feel like being stealthy when you're fishing a frog is really important when you're moving around in those weeds. If you can let the wind blow you by, it's a lot better. But so yeah, 50-pound braid, 7-2 heavy, fast action SLX rod with a fast 8-2-1 SLX reel. This is just a standard SLX. This is my frog setup. It doesn't do anything else other than this. And I love it. And I'm still working on my super long frog video. It was going to be Frog Project 2019. I guess it's going to be Frog Project 2021. It's coming. Don't worry. I got so much good footage. It's going to be good. So number 4, we're back to the Sticko. This was the 6-inch Florida rigged, and the only difference between this one and the PB video was the color. It's this right here, the orange and black. This is in 6-inch. If they made this in 7-inch, I would throw the 7-inch one too. 6-inch one. This is my favorite Cinco color for this part of Florida. And the reason I like this color, or was drawn to it, was that when I was growing up, we fished culprit worms in the moccasin color, I believe they call it, and it was a black and brown split like this. And I mean, that was literally like a game-changing lure for us. Like, went from catching a few fish on the black and blue curly-tail to catching a lot of fish on that worm. And so I know they like that color profile here, and I also know not a lot of people like this. Just ask Justice. But you can ask Atypical Outdoors what he thinks about it now. He's a fan. I gave him a bag of these. I was like, trust me, they're gonna work. Check out his channel for some great fishing content as well. And we fish together when we can. He comes down, I go up. But yeah, this caught me my 8-pound, 8-ounce bass off the edge of those lily pads. I mean, and this is on that same SLX combo. The other one that I caught Big Mama on, this is usually my Texas rig combo. Or maybe a buzzbait, or if I'm burning big easies, I'll use this. but this is normally my worm Texas rig setup. And so I was running 30-pound straight braid. I blackened the line like you would for a frog, and just running the weightless Senko. I like the bigger Senkos because they'll sink down through the holes of the vegetation without adding any weight. All right, so number 3 of my top 5 bass of 2020 in the bite videos is 9 pounds 4 ounces, and I caught that on a chatterbait. This exact color, not this exact one. I have the exact one in my stump of fame in my studio. It's the original Z-Man chatterbait. I found these at Ollie's for like $2, and I bought like 2 or 3 of each color. And this is kind of a craw color. It's like yellow, brown to black. Most importantly, it's got a black blade. Sometimes I think no flash, but vibration is good. Sometimes flash is good. This day I decided that no flash was good. And I had, this is a Gambler Easy Swimmer as a trailer, and I just clipped the paddle part of the tail off, so there's just this little tail. That is one of Mikey Balls' tricks. He has a whole video on doing that, and I did it, and it worked. Fishing this grass line in the roundabout. Mikey had caught almost 10-pounder a week before on a chatterbait, and I had never been a chatterbait guy. I liked them, I used them, but it was never like one of my go-to baits. And I was out here this day and I wasn't getting any bites, or not any good bites. I was catching a lot of small ones. And I was like, you know, what chatterbait do I have? And this was, I had this one and like I think a black and blue one, but I decided to try this one because I know they eat a lot of bluegill and other bass in this lake. And man, I mean, you saw that fish, it was huge. And yeah, pretty much became a chatterbait fisherman after that. That's when I actually bought the chatterbait rod. This wasn't on the right rod at all. This was, again, on that same medium heavy SLX rig. And all I did, because I got one other good bite before this and it came off instantly. This rod is way too fast, way too heavy of an action. I was running straight braid. So when I lost that one bite, I added a leader, put a 17-pound mono leader on, and I just backed my drag off just enough so that I could still hook set. And that's the only reason I got this fish in. The reel's too fast, the rod's too stiff, but I modified my presentation and setup of the drag and line to compensate. And it worked. But it didn't work great, so that's why I bought a chatterbait rod. But yeah, original Z-Man, Gambler, Easy Swimmer. It's a chunky presentation, and these trailers stay on pretty good for a while with a little super glue especially. They don't come off very easily. That's one thing I hate, is having to change trailers all the time. So I always try to find trailers that will last for a while if I can, as long as they have a good action. I won't sacrifice action for longevity. Not totally, at least. So then we get to bite number 2 as far as the largest fish I caught on video of 2020. And that is the 9-pound 10-ouncer that I caught on the Lucky Craft jerkbait that it's like I'd come back to. And there it is. This particular color is the same color I was using, the actual baits on my stump of fame. This is the Stacy 90 version 2. I had replaced the hooks just like this one. I have a Gamakatsu G Finesse. I believe that is the number 5 or 6. No, it's number 4. So I went up. I'm running 2 split rings in the back so that rear hook will get them if they snap at it. I was fishing this in kind of open water, so I wasn't as worried of hooking into cover. There was some grass at the bottom, but that extra split ring doesn't really affect that. And since I also upsized the front hook, it kind of rebalanced the bait. And then I'm running, in the front hook is an upsized hook, but it is the KVD EWG short shank, also number 4, I believe. And this hook up here, I'll run an EWG on the front hook of my jerkbaits and my crankbaits a lot of the time, because I feel like if they're going to eat it head first, then they're eating it, and that EWG is going to hold them. If they're eating it back first, that's where the G finesse hook is back there. That thing is the stickiest hook I've ever seen. But in this catch, this bass got this EWG hook right through the upper lip, and there's that little connective, almost like ridge between both sides of its mouth, and it went up and over and hooked. There was no way to get that hook, for that fish to get that hook out. I had to get a pair of pliers and like work it out. It was in there. And I had just put that EWG hook on there because I didn't have another hook that would fit on there. And pretty much after that, changed all my hooks on the front of my jerkbaits to an EWG. Especially on the 3 treble jerkbaits. I just feel like at that point you might as well have a little extra insurance on the end. And I was throwing this on that same jerkbait rod. At the time I had that Bass Rise reel on there because I was waiting for parts to rebuild this Casitas, and I was only time this year that I ran fluoro, and that is, in that video I'm running, what is it, 15 pounds fluorocarbon, because it was the only one I had. I pretty much have purged all my fluorocarbon out of my collection, and I had a little bit on there, and I was messing around with fishing jerkbait, so I decided to spool up the fluoro, and it only lasted for about a month, and then I put braid deleter. It just works better. I don't care what anyone says. I'm a braid deleter guy for jerkbaits. But same rod. This rod's amazing for keeping those jerkbait fish on and still having enough backbone to pop it out of cover. I talked about it already, but big fan of this rod. I just wish the paint were chipping off. It's the only problem I don't like. But maybe they'll fix that for me, or there. That was the longest, even my PB, which is, I've already talked about, which is the last in this series. She was almost a full inch shorter than this bass. This bass was just in the middle of the summer, July, summer weight, and in 14 feet of water. I was kind of long lining. I was making long casts, but I was also trying to get to the other side of the lake. So the boat was moving, so I let a little line out, and so I was probably getting that jerkbait. It's only supposed to go to 10 feet, but I think I was getting it all the way right at that bottom, like 13, 14 feet down, and she just nailed it and just loaded up. And 26.5 inches, you know, that's just a big, big mama. I can't wait to try to catch her now, leading into the spring. Wish me luck. I'm going to try. And then so the last bite of the day is also, we've talked about, was Big Mama. Hard to top. 12 ounces, 12 pounds, 9 ounces, Florida rig Cinco. And like I was saying, it was on that big 7-inch Cinco. And the reason I threw this one, or I do throw these 7-inch Cincos in general, this is in the Sungill color, which I didn't mention earlier. And it was Mikey, Captain Mikey, who put me on this color. It's kind of a green pumpkin with some blue flake. I don't know. It's a good color. But these bigger 7-inch Cincos, even more than a 6, you can throw it into heavy cover and it'll sink, and it actually has enough weight to pull your line down. And so I'm usually throwing this on 50-pound braid. In that video I was throwing it on 30. But having it fall through those holes is the key to getting those Cinco bites in heavy cover. And it's also heavy enough that if you just drag it over mats, it leaves enough of a wake that they'll blow up on it, just like they would a speed worm or a frog. Super versatile bait, and I feel like the large Cincos are underutilized in Florida here. Like, people don't tend to throw the 5-inch, or they tend to throw the 5-inch, not the 6 and 7-inch. I pretty much don't even pack the 5-inch Cincos unless I know I'm finesse fishing. It's almost always throwing it in heavy cover, so throwing the 7 or 6-inch Cincos Florida rigged like I showed you, or you can go check out the video. So yeah, that is how I caught my biggest fish, biggest 5 fish on video this year. kind of a mix of baits. The only repeat was the Cinco. Like I said, I lost the footage of a 10-pounder on a frog. That was a good one. I got several other 8s on frogs, a lot of 6s. It was a good year. I'm glad you guys stuck around to watch the whole recap. Let me know if you like these longer versions with more breakdown of the equipment. At some point I'm going to get, repetitive, and I'll stream down the content in terms of describing the tackle and the gear. This one being the first one, I had to talk about everything. But yeah, so my 2020 is over. 2021. I had a great year. 2020 is the second year that I kept track of my big bass, which is any bass over 4 pounds in my book is a big bass. And I have a statistics here. I caught 61 bass between 4 and 5 pounds. Yeah, that's a lot. I didn't even realize there was that many. I caught 63 bass over 5 pounds to 6. I caught 13 6-pounders. There were 3 days this year where I caught multiple 6-pounders. It was like some kind of weird coincidence. The first, I caught 2 on Rodman with my girlfriend in the boat, Ashley, both on the Trash Panda. That was pretty exciting, catching them on frog. It was at the end of the drawdown. They had just started filling up the lake, and it was right before COVID hit. I have a video of one of them. I think it's my second or third bite of the day if you want to go check it out. And then I caught 3 one day on a Cinco, on Florida Rig Cincos. And then there was another day that I caught 2, and one was on a frog and one was on a chatterbait. No, one was punching and one was on a chatterbait. So yeah, that was crazy. Multiple 6-pounder days are awesome. And I caught 4 bass, 7-pound range, 7 to 8 pounds. I got 5 bass over 8 pounds this year, and all of those were either on frogs or Cincos. So, I mean, that's just awesome. And then I got 2 9-pounders. You saw both of those. One was on a jerkbait and one was on a chatter. This was the first year I even caught a 9-pound bass. I had caught 8s and 10s, so it was nice to fill in that gap, get 2 9s. I got the 1 10-pounder on a frog, which I don't have on video, but that was in super deep pads. That was crazy. And then, of course, I got my 1 12-pounder. This year, my goal is to also try to pay attention to when, in terms of moon phase, I'm catching the bigger fish. We're only a couple weeks into 2020, and I've got 1 5 and 1 8 already, or 2021. I got a 5 and an 8 so far. So I've started the tracking. Be interesting to see what it all adds up to at the end. Keep checking out my Bite of the Day videos. They're here on YouTube, also on Instagram, and I'll do these wrap-ups at the end of every month, or sometimes a little late. I just lost track after the holidays, and then New Year's, and then my birthday, and I have a deadline for my art stuff. But I finally got around to making the video. Hope you like it, and like I said, let me know if you like the breakdown of the gear a little bit more. It'll make the videos a little longer, but I like longer videos. What can I say? I want to watch fishing all the time. So yeah, that's it for Wrap It of the Day for December of 2020, the last Bite of the Day wrap-up of the year. Happy New Year. I'm Ted from Ted Lincoln's Fishing Life. I'll see you soon. I'm out.